now. Make sure to record again, separate tracks of today's Tanya. Okay, so it's a very interesting topic, today's Tanya. And the truth is, it answers a question that many people ask me. Let me just say what the Tanya is going to address, and I'll say how it's really a common question that people deal with. So Tanya is going to ask, in the last few days we've said that the Beinoni never really changes. He's always controlling. He's controlling, he's avoiding, by being very disciplined, his animal soul from ever taking lead. And we even said in yesterday's Tanya that Hashem helps it. We said that it's like a parent who's advising their child, who gives them the energy and the ability to succeed. Hashem is giving the godly soul of the person the ability in order for the person to succeed. So you might ask then, well, is the Beinoni legit? Is he real? Is he a faker? Is that a good way to live your life, I guess, even? Are you really a productive person if your life is really never really changing? Are you a faker? Are you a faker if you constantly, as soon as you finish davening, so you go and you daven fine and that you're spiritually affected and you're on a high, you feel very powerful about it, but what happens after you daven? You go right back to the same you who was before. So the tzaddik, maybe, he changed. He changed his animal soul. He made it godly. He looks at the Beinoni and says, wow, what's wrong with you? You're not legit. You're just faking it. You're just controlling. You're just very disciplined, and that's why you're able to get where you're able to get. And that question could be asked. And the truth is, people ask me this question. I'll broaden it a little bit. People ask me, they'll say, a guy told me the other day, he said, Rabbi, I know these people who look very religious, and I know something very bad that they do. So they're not really religious. They're faking, right? They pretend. So my answer to him was that if a guy is going to the pizza store and eating a whole pie, but then he does, he wants to eat a Diet Coke instead of a Coke because he doesn't want to gain that extra calories from the Coke, whatever it is, or a Snapple, I don't know, it's 250 calories for a Snapple bottle, you'll say he's a faker? Is he a faker? I said, no, he's not a faker. He's just, he's trying his best. He's doing what he can. And you're not going to say, okay, now, like the guy has a full steak dinner and he doesn't want dessert because he doesn't want to add the extra calories. You're not going to say, listen, you want to diet, you're a faker. You just had a whole steak. You'll say, look, I'm at least doing part of it. I'm not. I'm watching my way part of it. I'm not a faker. That's what I told him. Today's Tanya, I feel like is actually going a little deeper than that. Is addressing kind of with the Beinoni, a little different kind of topic, but similar issue. And that is that who's the real you? And he says an interesting point. Because the Beinoni could always go back to davening and get re-inspired and reconnected. It just has to go to open the siddur and start praying again, and he's back where he was. Why are you saying the real him is the guy after davening? Maybe the real him is the davening guy. You could always go back there. You can always go back to davening. You can always go back there and daven again. So why are you saying the real him is the guy in between davening? No, maybe the real him is by davening and in between. He's not himself. So why is that fake? Number one. Number two, right now when he's davening, it's real. I understand later on. You're right. Relative to the tzaddik, it's fake. But in his world, this is his reality. You can't say he's a faker if that's his reality. His reality is he can't change himself. He's trying so hard to change himself and he can't. So truth is really dependent on your level. So for the tzaddik, truth is really changing his animal soul. For the Beinoni, truth is being able to really connect to control himself and be able to connect to Hashem. That's his truth. I want to give an example on that. And we'll explain this more as we read the Tanya inside. I heard a very interesting story once. It was I don't know, some Rebbe from somewhere who had a follower, a Hasidic follower. And, when they go to shul there, they wear the big shtreimel and the big fur hat and the long cloak. And they're swaying and they're praying. And meanwhile, when he would go to business, whatever he did, he would put on his other clothes, his business clothes. Put on his jeans. I don't know what he put on, his sweatshirt and his jeans, a t-shirt and jeans. And then every time he would go to visit his Rebbe, though, he would always dress like that with the t-shirt and jeans. He would go to work every day. whatever kind of job he did, that was a clothing. But then he would go to his Rebbe, and he would all of a sudden put on his beautiful big fur hat and his coat, and he looked like totally different. So he decided, I'm a faker. Why am I faking my Rebbe and dressing up? When I go to visit him with my whole Hasidic garb, let me be honest with him. Let me be truthful. Let me go in how I dress every day. So he goes in with his jeans and his t-shirt, and he goes into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe looks at him and says, what's going on? Why are you dressed like this? He says, you know what? I decided I don't want to be a faker. So the Rebbe said, listen, you think I don't know that in the work, when you're out there, you're not dressing all these fancy silk long coats and the fur hat? You think I don't know that? I knew you when you went to work or when you lived the rest of the day, that's how you dress. But I always thought you were faking them. When you came to me here, this was the real you. And when you were out there wearing the other clothes, you were faking the world. You were faking the world. You're not faking here. Here's the real, you got to be yourself. And now you're coming in with the clothes here because you don't want to fake me. No, I thought you're faking them. You're faking me. So he says that the Beinoni, why are you judging this Beinoni guy? Because he's going to lose himself after prayer and go back to his temptations. But even while he's in temptation, he can always open up a siddur, pray, and go back to loving Hashem and having that feeling. So that's the real him. Why are you judging him in that way? And I'll add more. That's not just the point. The point is also that your truth is on your level, whatever your truth is. You can't judge the Beinoni by the tzaddik. That's the best the Beinoni could do. That's his reality. He can't change himself. He's acting amazing. If you judge him relative to the tzaddik, then you'll be depressed with your life. Why am I not a tzaddik? Why do I have to struggle? That's your truth. That's your best. That's your truth. That's your reality. It's not something you should be upset about. In life, we can't sit and say, I want to be like somebody else. Regarding the tzaddik, relative to his truth, he needs to overcome his animal soul. But regarding the Beinoni, relative to his truth, he needs to control himself. And that's his truth. And he's not a faker when he's doing that, because he's doing his best, his truth. He's doing the best that he can. Let's see that inside in today's Tanya. Very important part of Tanya, because the person, after learning in yesterday's Tanya that it's only because you have Hashem's help, and only because you're constantly controlling yourself, but you could always go back to your original state, a person might feel that he's a faker, or my life is doomed to failure because I always need to control myself, so I'm never going to really change. So that is a little bit about, Tanya says, no, you're not a faker, you're the real truth. Let's see inside. In this level of love that the Beinoni has, while he's davening, we said he could awaken and get in touch with and have a burning love in his heart. How is it? Because the godly soul turns on fire. It's like the oven is turned to 500, and you're burning enough. There's nothing else could stop him. This level of love of the Beinoni relative to the service of a tzaddik, who serves God for real, in real truth, because they really love Hashem. It's not just a 1-hour production prayer that they've in touch with this love, but they've really created this real love in their heart. Relative to the tzaddik, it's fake. Fake news. It's not real, because he brought about real change, and he really changed himself. Relative to the Beinoni's love, it's not real. Why not? Because it disappears. It passes, it disappears, it goes away after prayer is over. Fine. So what kind of love is that? The tzaddik says. That it disappears. I need to work on myself to really create a real love. And he backs his opinion up with a verse from Proverbs. What does King Solomon say? Oh, I'm sorry, it's from Micha. From the Tanakh, Sfas emes tikkun la'ad. The lip of truth, the language of truth, is something that stays forever, is established forever. Something truthful will be everlasting. And the ad arigia lashin shakar, and the tongue of falsehood is only momentary. So lies, it might be a big lie, people might buy into it, but eventually it's going to be gone. But truth stays forever. So the tzaddik's world seems to say that the Beinoni, who only can bring about unpermanent love, not lasting love, only love that could stay for a little while, is not real. So he says no. And as I was talking about the class, he says, look, you cannot judge the Beinoni based on the tzaddik's level. It's not a fair thing to do. You know, like a nice example of this is Yaakov. Yaakov inspired all his children, and they were all so different than each other. Could be one of the most important things for a parent to do is say, look, these are truths, but they each can be dressed up in the child's different nature, in the child's different way. That's what he's saying about Pikin, like Madregas HaBeinoni, relative to the Beinoni, Nikras Avodah Tama be'emes la'amita shalahem. Regarding the Beinoni, this is real. This is the ultimate truth. That's his reality. So in his world, the ability to bring the love of Hashem, to turn on the fire, at least for that hour during prayer, that's his truth. Ish kifi madregasim v'madregas HaBeinoni. Every Beinoni relative to his level. That is not a fake. It's a real thing. It's his greatest potential, the greatest level he could reach. It's his core. It's his reality. It's his truth. And that Beinoni's prayer that he prayed that you're saying it might disappear, it's not real, it's fake, because as soon as he leaves the show, he'll go back and be challenged, and the love will be over, and the animal soul will start already pushing his buttons again. No, I don't agree. That's still truth. Why? Since you could always reawaken that love, you could always get in touch with it. Every time you go to shul, every time you're going to go back to shul for shachris, you're going to awaken that again. You go back for mincha, you'll awaken. You go back for ma'ariv, you'll awaken. You have a class, you'll awaken that love for Hashem again. But you need to do a little preparation. Every person, before they go to shul, they have to invest the right meditation and think about Hashem's greatness, and they'll reach that love. But the fact that you could bring it on a regular basis indicates that it's not fake. Because you could get it on, and the next day you'll have it again when you daven Shachris. Who is of our forefathers is known as the character of truth? Not Abraham, because he had one son who was a tzaddik, but one son who wasn't. And not Yitzchak, because he had one son who was and one son who wasn't. Yaakov had 12 sons, and they all, at the end of the day, as we said, really were tzaddikim, even though there were challenges, but they all were tzaddikim. So that father had a unique parenting skill that he was able to reach each child, although each child is so different than each other. You know why? Because truth, real truth, is able to be recognized by everyone in their level. That's a real truth, actually. But something that's not a real truth could only be grasped by certain people. But something that is the ultimate truth is actually something that, even though the children are so different than each other, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, completely different than each other, they were able to get in touch and recognize Hashem and be good Jews because Yaakov had educated them in this way of the real truth that's able to go into every child's unique character and ability. That's something that's true. So something that actually is able to reach so many different people is something that's very, very true. So everyone has their own truth. And you can't judge one by another, but something that's real true can reach the truth of every person. He gives a very interesting example from the tabernacle, how it was built. It's something, a case of what does that mean? When they built the tabernacle, they had the outer wall of the Mishkan, not the gate that surrounded the courtyard, but the actual building of the tabernacle was built of a bunch of beams put next to each other together. How did they hold the beams? I think there may be like 20 beams or 40 beams. How did they hold them all together next to each other? So they drilled 3 holes inside these beams. One hole was maybe the top third of the beam, another hole in the bottom third of the beam, and then another hole in the middle of the beam. So there were 3 holes. It's very interesting how these holes work. In the top hole, they had one beam go through each wall separately. So whatever wall it was, besides for the door, the other 3 walls had a beam going from one end to the other. The top hole and the bottom hole of those beams had another pole going through the beams, keeping them together. But the middle hole, in between all these beams, was a fascinating miracle happened. They would send the pole through the middle, one wall, the hole of all the beams. And when it got to the end of the wall, the pole miraculously turned left and went through all the beams on the back wall, and then made another left and turned through and went through all the beams on the wall. So how could a wood or metal, wood I guess it was, item bend, if it's so strong, it was a miracle. So the miracle was that it could go through the holes of one wall and then make a left, go through the next wall and then make a left. So they were able to really clamp together by having one miraculous pole that actually turned. So he says something interesting. He's saying in life, when you get to the essence of everyone's truth in their middle, it's a real truth. Something that's very true, when it gets in touch with the essence of whatever it's getting in touch with, it can be recognized as truth in that person's world. As long as you get in touch with the core part of the person. So the middle, the truth can find a way to touch the middle, the core of every person, and find it. You could find it over there, which is its truth. So every creation on its level has its truth, and all those truths are connected. When you get in touch with the core of a person, you can get in touch. That is the reality, and that's their truth. And then that truth can travel from the highest level to the lowest level. So I guess when you teach advice, certain advice and ideas, will only reach a certain segment of people. Maybe men will agree with it, and women won't. But something that's very true, men and women will both agree with that fact. And many different kinds of people, different cultures agree with it because it's so true and it touches the essence of every person that it's true by everyone, even though these groups of people are so different than each other. So even though relative to the tzaddik, the work of the Beinoni is not true, because he's like, hey, you got to really change yourself to be lasting. But relative to the Beinoni, that's his core, that's his essence, that's his truth. And yes, it is true. Real truth actually can break through, because when something's true, everybody accepts it. It's reality accepted by everyone, can break through divisions. It could climb very high and go very low. So the greatest people will agree with this truth, and the lower levels will agree with this truth because it's so true. So something that's very true can touch much more people because it gets in touch with the truth of every person. So even though one level relative to the next, the higher level's truth doesn't recognize the lower level as truth, but in their core, the truth could touch everyone. Like by the angels, they say the lowest part of the high angels are higher than the highest part level under them. You're right. I'm not arguing that higher levels look at the lower levels and don't get it. They don't get the truth. But something that's really true can touch the hearts of all of them together. So a really good speaker, a brilliant person who can really get in touch with the essence, is able to share ideas that can even get with people who look at each other as so different, could talk about something that could get in touch with them. The bottom line is what he's trying to say in Tanya, just to collect the thought here. The bottom line is what he's trying to talk about in Tanya is that the Beinoni should not feel in his life like he's a faker or he's not accomplished in life because he's never really changing himself, because he's not the tzaddik. Because that's not for him. It's not his reality, and it's not his truth. If he could protect himself, that he shouldn't control himself and make sure he's disciplined, and at the times of davening, always get in touch with that fire and turn on the oven to 500 and be able to connect with Hashem at that moment, that is his truth, and that's okay. He's not a faker for doing that. So even though sometimes in life he'll be challenged and he won't carry it with him all day, that doesn't make him a faker. That's his reality, that's his truth, and he can always turn it back on by going to shul, which proves that it really is his truth and it really is in touch with that love. Fascinating class in today's Tanya on why a person shouldn't get upset and depressed if they see that it's not something they're able to keep up on a regular, consistent basis. And that's the end of today's Tanya. Any questions or comments on today's Tanya? We finished good timing today. 12:50. Any questions or comments on today's Tanya, or it's clear to everyone? I guess so. I guess it's clear. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Have an amazing day ahead. And may all those who have COVID have a refuah shlema very soon. And may we only have brachas, and I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time, same place.
Have a good day.
Have a good day, Mitchell. Have a good day, David. Have a good day, Ira. Evan, Harvey, Yao, Brad, and Josh. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
You too.
Thank you, Rabbi. You too.
Yeah.